The most feared predator our ancestors ever encountered might be the reason any of us are alive to hear this story. Not the lion, not the saber-toothed cat, something colder, more patient, and far more dangerous than either of them, the wolf. For most of human history, that animal was the enemy. There's a growing pile of evidence suggesting it might also have been our first ally, maybe the only reason our species made it out of the Ice Age at all. Go back 50,000 years, strip away your house, your fire, your knife, your phone. Drop yourself into a frozen valley at night, alone, with nothing but skin and a few sharpened rocks. You are not the strongest thing in that valley. You're not even close. Cave lions bigger than any lion alive today. Cave bears that could stand taller than a doorway. Saber-toothed cats stalking anything slow enough to catch. Packs of hyenas built to crack bone. Winters so brutal they could kill you in a single unlucky night. No claws built for killing, no thick coat for the cold, no speed to outrun anything that wanted you dead. Just soft skin, slow legs, and a brain that hadn't yet learned how to make up for any of it. Here's a detail that should unsettle you. Human babies are born more helpless than almost any other primate on Earth. They can't cling to fur, they can't walk for a year. In a world built around ambush predators, that should have been a fatal design flaw. Even our closest relatives weren't as exposed as we were. Neanderthals had thicker bones, denser muscle, bodies built for cold in ways ours simply weren't. So here's the real question, not how humans became the dominant species on Earth. How did such a fragile, unarmed, slow-growing animal survive long enough to get there in the first place? For decades, scientists have chased that question through caves, fossils, and frozen bones. One answer keeps surfacing in places nobody expected. We didn't do it alone. Long before there were dogs, there were wolves, and wolves had almost everything we didn't. Some estimates suggest a wolf's nose holds tens of millions more scent receptors than a human's. Ears sharp enough to catch a snapped branch in pitch darkness. Legs built to run for hours without stopping. And something even more dangerous than any single one of those traits. They knew how to work as a team. In a strange way, a wolf pack functioned like an upgrade bolted on to human survival. Senses we didn't have, stamina we couldn't match, teamwork sharper than our own. A human alone in the Ice Age was fragile. A wolf pack moved like a single creature with one mind, bringing down animals 10 times its size. For most of history, that made wolves one of the most terrifying things a human could meet in the dark. But somewhere in the coldest stretch of the Ice Age, something unexpected started happening. The most dangerous animal in that world stopped being only a threat. It started becoming a possibility. Here's where it gets strange. Some researchers think it began with garbage. Human hunters left behind bones, scraps, carcasses too picked over to bother dragging home. Wolves, always opportunists, started following that smell. Most kept their distance. Fear ran deep on both sides. But a few didn't. A handful of bolder, calmer wolves crept close enough to feed on the leftovers and survived to do it again the next night. And this is the part that should stop you. The wolves that thrived closest to humans weren't the strongest or the fiercest, they were the calmest. Generation after generation, without a single human planning any of it, evolution was quietly rewriting an apex predator into something new. The biologist Raymond Coppinger called this self-domestication, the idea that wolves may have tamed themselves one meal at a time, long before any person ever tried to train one. Decades later, geneticist Dmitry Belyaev tested a version of this idea directly on foxes. Breeding only the calmest individuals in each generation, he watched some of them start growing floppy ears and patchy coats, traits nobody had deliberately bred for. Tameness alone was enough to reshape a species from the inside out. It may have been the earliest piece of technology our species ever acquired. Not a spear, not a fire, a relationship. And the benefits didn't run in just one direction. A wolf hanging near a human camp meant an early warning system. Wolves could smell a cave lion before a human ever saw one. They could hear a bear crossing the trees in the dead of night.
For early humans, that might have meant the difference between sleeping through the night and waking up to a predator already in the camp. In return, humans may have offered wolves something they'd never had: steady food, without the risk of a fight with prey that could kill them. It wasn't domestication the way we usually picture it: no leash, no plan, no single moment of taming. It may have looked more like a slow negotiation between two species, each one quietly reshaping the other. But here's where the story turns into something bigger than anyone expects. Paleoanthropologist Pat Shipman has proposed that this partnership may have given one group of humans a decisive edge over a very close relative, the Neanderthals. Our species moved into Europe while Neanderthals were already living there, expert hunters who had survived the Ice Age for over 100,000 years. Within a few thousand years, they were gone. Shipman's theory suggests one reason might be this: our ancestors had backup, wolf-like hunting partners that could track prey, guard a kill from scavengers, and warn a camp of danger at night. As far as we can tell, Neanderthals didn't have that. If she's right, one of the biggest turning points in human history may not have come down to who was smarter or who was stronger. It may have come down to who wasn't alone. Wait, it gets stranger still. Over thousands of years, the wolves closest to humans kept changing. Their skulls shrank, their teeth grew smaller, patches of color crept into their coats. Some kept playful dog-like behavior into adulthood that wild wolves usually outgrow as pups. They were turning into something that had never existed on Earth before. Not quite wolf, not yet what we'd call a dog. Picture a fire at the edge of a camp tens of thousands of years before the first city. A half-wild animal, lying just close enough to the flames to feel the warmth, waiting for scraps, unwilling to lose whatever this new life had become. Archaeologists have found the proof. In a cave in Belgium and beside the Rhine in Germany, they've uncovered skeletons of these early dog-like animals, some more than 30,000 years old, buried carefully next to humans. Not eaten, not thrown aside, buried like they mattered. At a site called Bonn-Oberkassel, 2 humans were laid to rest 14,000 years ago beside the skeleton of a dog. Its bones show it survived a serious illness for weeks, maybe months, cared for the entire time. Something was feeding and tending to a sick animal that could give nothing back in return. Not for meat, not for labor, just because it mattered. That's not domestication, that's family. Maybe the wolves that changed our history weren't the ones we chose. Maybe they were the ones who chose us. So who really domesticated who? We like to tell human history as a story of conquest, one species outsmarting, outbuilding, and outlasting everything around it. The wolf doesn't fit that story. The wolf suggests something stranger, that our ancestors' greatest advantage may not have been intelligence alone. It may have been the willingness to let something else in, to share a kill, a fire, a family with an animal that used to hunt us for food. Maybe civilization wasn't built only by humans. Maybe it was built by every uneasy alliance we were grave or desperate enough to make. Because long before we had cities or writing or wheels, we had this: 2 species that feared each other, learned to trust each other, and changed each other forever. Every dog asleep on a couch tonight still carries a piece of that gamble in its blood. And somewhere in that frozen dark, tens of thousands of years ago, one small, unlikely alliance might be the reason you're watching this video today.